Hi, I'm Laura.
Hey, I'm Stefan, and you're listening to Attributed, a podcast library by Dream Data.
The purpose of it is to store and share all the knowledge that we have gathered across Dream Data employees through our LinkedIn Lives, podcasts, and webinars.
The typical topics you'll find here can be stuff like marketing,
Sales,
B2B ads,
operations,
social selling maybe. Hello and welcome everybody to today's live session brought to you by us here at Dream Data. My name is Stefan, and I'm super excited today because today I get to speak with Kelly Hopping, who is the CMO at SixSense. Kelly has a phenomenal CV behind her, and she's led marketing across Fortune 500 companies. She's done high growth B2B companies, and she's even run her own podcast, just like I'm trying to do here. So I'm sure that we both, Kelly and I, will be in safe hands during this conversation. We're going to talk today about something about how to lead high performing marketing teams that kind of just don't drive awareness about the company, but also drives pipeline for B2B companies. And one of the things that has been kind of what I suspect have been kind of one of the secret sources to Kelly's success, we'll hear in a minute, has been her ability to do something called performance branding, which is kind of in the old days would be like thought of like as a contradictory term, but Kelly has actually done the actual work of both doing performance and branding at the same time. And Kelly, just to declare, I used to come from more the performance side, but as a CMO, I'm learning day by day how important branding and product marketing and so forth is as well. So I'm really just excited to learn from what you've learned in your career here today. But I gave a few drops of your very impressive career, Kelly. Can you just, for those who have not heard about you before, say kind of the 1, 2, 3 minute introduction to yourself?
Sure. Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm Kelly Hopping. I am currently the CMO at SixSense, but I've been in the B2B space for a long stretch. I started my career as an engineer, but I've been a marketer for the last 25 years or so. Most recently from Demand Base and Gartner and Rackspace, AMD, Dell. I've kind of had a few different. I think the part that gets interesting to me though is yeah, when you can look at that full funnel journey and connect it all together. And I think with the world of go to market the way that it is today, I think brand has become more important than ever. So I grew up in kind of the more on the brand and product marketing side. Added the performance side later. Love that side, and so the ability to merge them together was a win-win for me.
So I'm always jealous when I see marketers who started out in engineering because it's one of those things. "Ugh, I wish I had time to kind of learn that craft before I started all this marketing. Because particularly nowadays with all these querying and prompts and etc., understanding how data works at a granular level would have been a nice supplement for my CV. Did it actually matter for your career? You'd think, Kelly?
I think so. Like I was an engineer at a college and I was expected to I was planning to go into product development or consulting or something like that. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to be an engineer, at least not for long. I kind of figured I'd go get my MBA eventually. Which I did, but I ended up doing marketing before that. I was right before my first job. I got a call from my boss who said we had a reorg and I'm no longer the VP of product development. I'm now the VP of product marketing. You want to come do marketing with me for the summer? And I was like, "Sure." And then I've been doing it ever since, but I finally went back to business school to properly learn. But I do think there's a couple things I think that come with it. One, I think I have a general understanding and interest in the tech. And so the technology sector has always been interesting because I just by kind of growing up on the coding side. So I like that part. I also think it gives you some street cred a little bit with the product team and the engineering teams that, you never want to be perceived as sort of overhead, fluffy marketer or whatever. I think it's why pipeline is so important. It's why understanding the tech is so important. It's why I think it's really important to own, if you get it, like owning product marketing in the marketing set versus on the product side. Okay, I've seen it both ways. I like it better in marketing, but I think it comes down to kind of like to someone trust that you can understand the tech enough to do it justice when you take it to market.
I think that's a great insight. And Kelly, even even though I'm very eager to jump into today's topic, I'd just be curious to like you've had such a successful career already. What would you think has had the most positive spin on how you go to marketing nowadays? Or is there one or two kind of episodes or anecdotes you think about?
That have made one I think that I have probably I'd say, well, one, I think people is a big part of it, right? I think success usually comes down to being around leaders and products and peers that trust you, that believe in you, that will give you that kind of empower you to be able to run, make mistakes, try things, get creative, test some concepts. So I think that has been I've been in organizations that have given me a lot of reign, which is nice to be able to be successful. And I think the other thing is I have worked in all the different disciplines at some point. Like I may have started in brand and product, but then I went and ran. I was a CMO at Gartner in the e-commerce side of the business, which was the Capterra software advice get app side of the business, Gartner Digital Markets, and so that was all demand gen, it was all online, it was all SEM, SEO, affiliate partners. So it was a totally different part of the brain to use, and I loved that, and that's when I really got into the numbers and geeking out, and I think that part allowed me to kinda go then be a full stack CMO, which is kind of the best part. It's really hard to do parts of marketing, leadership without sort of all the levers, to do it, and so yeah, I think just, and being able to speak intelligently about each of the functions because 'cause I've led them each before, I think has been really helpful.
That's a really good career advice. And though it's daunting to kind of take a job where you're touching stuff that you don't normally know of, at least early in your career, it can be really helpful because then suddenly you become, as you say, like a full stack marketer that knows a bit about most disciplines and will be at some point then a very qualified leader as a sparring partner to all these specialists that you'll have to deal with every day in marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think, and that doesn't mean I'm an expert in all of them. I don't think that's ever gonna be the case.
No,
That's
no.
hiring a great leadership team. Like, I've run creative teams multiple times, and I love running creative teams. But I'm not a creative. And so, like, I always feel like my role in that, for example, is like, I wanna make sure you understand the objectives, they're crystal clear, that you understand the tone that we're going after, you're going after the audience we're trying to get to, those kind of things, and then I kinda wanna trust the creatives to run with it. It's not, everything after that is kinda subjective, so
Love that. We've doubled our marketing team lately, and it's only been going from 6 to 12, but I definitely feel this like with like more creative specialists, I need to find out when am I a bottleneck and in the way of creativity and when do I actually need to help with direction. It's a fine balance because I find most marketing disciplines fun as well. So it's also about where do I interject myself and where should I just kind of stay back and let the team do their work.
oh, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's half the battle as a leader is I wanna dig into all of it, but I also need to balance with, empowering my leaders, but also being available to help and roll up my sleeves if they need it, and figuring out that dance has been, one of the challenges, but I will say that anyway, I've had some incredible marketing leaders working for me that have made me look really good.
That's a good trick.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Kelly, if we jump into the catchy headline that we named this conversation by, which is strong brand is the only way to shorten B2B sales cycles. I'd love for you to just kind of like start kind of peeling the layers of this claim. I'm sure that the salespeople and the sales enablement team will say, "Hey, that might not be true, Kelly." But and obviously we are trying to provoke attention here. But what do you mean, Kelly, when you say, sorry, that brand is one of the best ways to shorten sales cycles?
Yeah, I mean, sales will say that they don't that it's not as important until they try to sell a product where people don't know who they are. And I've had sellers, I've worked at some really amazing companies, but don't always have high brand awareness. So I was at, I would think like when I was at Rackspace, when I was at Haiku, which was a Series A to B startup. Um, those were brands that just didn't have a ton of brand awareness at the time. And I tell you, if you don't have some of that, then you lose. Then no matter how much pipeline you drive, they're not gonna answer the phone. They're not gonna
Mm,
respond to email. And so, but I don't think it's that alone. So I always, my philosophy always is I wanna make sales love us, like, as the marketing function. I want them to feel like I can't do my job without marketing instead of like, "Oh, the marketing people again." I want them to feel, and it's not because they get pipeline. Yes, they do, that's part of it, but it's also because they get a brand that gives them air cover when they reach out to prospects.
mm,
It's, a marketing team that shows up at events where their prospects are, so they have a reason to be in front of their customers. A marketing team that gives them great content for that they can either share with customers or to enable them to be better sellers.
yeah.
Uh, a marketing team that helps them position the product properly so they can break through on the phone. Like, I'm not going to teach them how to sell, but if I can give them everything they need to sell, then they're going to be a lot happier. And that's full funnel. So that's from brand all the way down to a high qualified lead or a very tangible lead. But at the end of the day, that's what matters. And I've been in categories, I think right now, with as fast as the market is changing, as fast as categories are getting consolidated, companies are consolidating, like all these kind of struggling companies are kind of huddling together for warmth because they're not able to kind of stand on their own. Like all of those, I'm realizing more important than ever is they're all trying to reinvent themselves because AI is totally disrupting everything that they've been, whatever they've stood for in the past. I mean, we even had seen it,
Yeah.
Sixth Sense, like ABM is getting kind of like that term is feeling legacy when you look at all things AI. And so then it's like, okay, well, what is that actual category that we're playing in? What is that actual story that we're telling? What is that pivot? What's the problem we're actually solving? And it's a whole different flip. That's brand, right? I mean, that's the brand that's going to get you there. Like sometimes I think, man, we can drive pipe all day, but if companies aren't in the market for this category or this position or this role that they think we're playing, then they're not gonna even entertain the conversation. And so to me, that's why if you can get to like, "That's a problem I have, I'm ready to go," like, you're gonna shorten your sales cycle completely. I mean, just convincing people who we are and what we stand for and that, "Oh, no, no, we're not that legacy thing anymore. Now we do this other cool thing." That's a hard lift for a sales guy to get around, and so, that's our job, and I think that's where brand makes the biggest difference.
That's a very good pitch for brand, Kelly. I think where I experience it the most on my day to day is when I get outbound calls and the person who's calling me says a brand I've never heard about.
Yeah.
I immediately just go, dude,
Yep.
like I'm
Yep.
not gonna spend time on it because you haven't paid the entrance fee.
Yep.
And the entrance fee is that I know I've heard about this brand at some point.
100%. I mean, we did some research this year, Carrie Cunningham did on the B2B buying journey. And I forget, I was just trying to figure out exactly what the numbers are, but it's somewhere around 84% or something like that of buying decisions or the shortlist decision happens before they ever pick up that phone to a
Yeah.
BDR, right? Or they ever answer that phone or submit an online request or whatever it is. 84%. I think if that's the number. So don't quote me if I say that wrong. But it's somewhere in the mid 80s. That number is basically to get you to the short list.
Mm,
Actually, you know what is I'm wrong. I'm gonna say this again because 'cause we're live. It's like 95%, I think, is come into the conversation with the shortlist. That shortlist is only determined by brand, right?
mm,
That's what they've seen in the market, they've seen at events, what they've seen on LinkedIn. That's who deciding, and then once they're on that shortlist, like 80% of the time, that shortlist winner is the one who wins. And so the sales job becomes much simpler if we do brand right
yeah.
because they've already decided that they've already said, like, I want Six Sense, for example, at the top of my list. And so that's the first one they come in. And then they come in with a confirmation bias. They're not coming in to objectively evaluate two platforms. They're coming in with, I'm probably going to get Six Sense, but for the purpose of my procurement department, I'm going to entertain a couple others so that I get the best deal. But
Yeah.
they've really already got this bias towards the one that they came in with. Like that's all brand. So then your sales cycle's job or your sales team's job is just to close that deal because they already
Mm,
want you and to give them the right terms and the right, setup and all the, deals. And so like, man, then it's like, man, I should be putting all my money into brand because that's gonna like, I mean, you're gonna have
Yeah.
an 85% win rate if that's the case.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think it's incredible how kind of the whole buying journey is flipping from back in the day where the salesperson would be like the gatekeeper of information, and you'd have to ask me a question if we integrated to this and if we could do this and that. That game is just kind of over. We studied some benchmarks about the customer journeys of our customers as well, and 81% of the journey happened outside the sales pipeline in the CRM system, which is just it's just game over by the time you reach the sales pipeline.
100%. I mean, if 80%'s done before, then when you walk into the deal, they're only at like the 20%. And if you're at the top of that list when you come in, then your chances of win are disproportionately higher. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you still obviously have to do pipeline to get in front of those people who are at that point or to kind of spur um, a decision to be made to point out a pain point or whatever it is to make it enough to drive the action. But that brand influence is coming way before a seller ever touches that deal.
Yeah. So so one of the things I totally buy into the brand, like that pitch you've just given for it, but where some I think most are not really good at articulating what are the actual like components of a brand, and sometimes I feel like I miss a brand playbook that is kind of more tangible. There's a story, there's distribution, there's what are kind of for you, Kelly, when you think about what is a brand, kind of what are kind of the building blocks that needs to come together?
Yeah, I mean, so brand I think is kind of everything that we do, right? So I'll tell a couple
Yeah,
parts on
like
one.
that, also 100%.
Yeah, so I mean, there's certainly the brand, the way it looks, the way it sounds, the tone, the narrative, the tagline, the messaging, the all of those things, the events they host, the audience they play to. I think that's all a big part. I think it's also just the way we come to life, right? Like I think about like, I don't know, like my AT&T guy, like I don't really think about the AT&T logo. I think about like the last AT&T guy that came to fix my internet. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, that's part of the brand, that guy who came to my house. So I think it goes all the way from like true like brand awareness and logos and pretty pictures all the way down to like how the CSMs talk to customers or prospects or anything. I think that's so we all need to recognize that we're brand stewards. I think that's one. And I think it's really right now it's so much about tapping into a real pain point. That's the like I think that's where that messaging like gets some traction and texture is really like do they get me? Do they really understand the challenge I have? And right now, if you look at a lot of marketing out there, and ours sometimes included, like we've got to fix parts of ours is, you could there's a lot of companies out there promising pipeline and bookings and higher conversion, whatever, and you could literally swap out the logos and they're kind of all the same. It's
Yeah.
it's just differentiated, right? Like in a way that feels meaningful. And sometimes the differentiation just comes in the fact that you get to own that space because of the brand higher, like the brand equity that you've already achieved. And so by claiming something, you kinda get to be like, I don't know, like, I think about Volvo and safety, like, they talked about, like, are they really the safest car on the road? Probably not, but because one point they equated Volvo to safety, then now it's just the assumed,
Mm.
"Oh, Volvo's the safest one
It
out there."
sticks.
Yeah, it just sticks,
Yeah.
right? And so there's also this, like, where do you have permission to own, a differentiation and where do you not? And so I think that all comes with some of the equity.
Yeah, and I think like for example, a brand like Six Sense, I think you guys almost also own the ABM term for a lot of people. That even though you're clearly, when I was reading the website, evolving the brand and it's like new frontiers, but there's still a lot of good legacy in owning clearly like one position.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can be both a blessing and a curse, right? Because
Mm.
then convincing somebody that you do more than ABM is a challenge. So, like for example, what we're going through right now at Six Sense is ABM is I don't think anybody disagrees that account based is the right go to market
Yeah,
strategy.
yeah, for B2B. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure, right? Like everybody has learned that kind of the spray and pray model of like hit the whole universe and hope somebody bites like doesn't work anymore. you have to go after target accounts. We
Yeah.
have to be in lockstep with sales, that marketing and sales are both going after the same target accounts, that we're sort of orchestrating, a beautiful dance between the two. Like, I think all of that is no one's disputing that. I think the question is the delivery model now with AI. So the question is, do I need an ABM platform in its current state? Many companies, a big, huge part of the market says, yes, absolutely. I need a marketer who runs that, who executes all the plays. That's what I want. But we also have another side of the market that's like, well, I'm actually trying to build my own AIs and my own agents. I'm trying to build, I'm trying to connect my whole ecosystem around the same data, the same insights, the same intent, the same predictive models. And so I want all the guts inside the ABM that are going to tell me where to hunt, but I want to feed it into my data lake or my CDP to be able to talk to Gong and Clary and Salesforce and kind of all the different tools that are out there, qualified or whatever. And then plus, and then I want, some sort of AI to connect it all, like Clay or
Mm.
something.
Yeah.
And so it's a different deployment model. And it solves the same issue, meaning it allows you to go after the right accounts who are in market for your product, and that are the right fit, but it delivers in a different way. And even that flip is a brand flip, right? That's we need to like figure out how do we reposition Sixth Sense that says we are not just the platform. Yes, for those of you new to ABM, want a little bit don't have all that kind of data lake stuff yet, and you're kind of running point to point, like 100% this is the right solution for you. But for
Yeah.
the others, like we want to be able to deliver that too. And so how do we kind of convince you that we're not just trapped inside a box? We also have all the guts that can feed the rest. And all of that is, again, it's a category pivot. That's where the brand piece comes in, because right now, if someone called, like if a sales guy called, even with people knowing who Sixth Sense is, because you talked about what are the different kind of elements of
Yeah. Yeah.
brand,
Yeah. Yeah.
a sales guy called, I don't know, some giant organization, I don't know, Amazon, who's probably like fully like tech integrated, right? Everything's connected because they're all the things. Called and said, "Hey, we've got an ABM platform for you." They'd be like, we don't need that. We've got data, we've got insights, we've got platforms, we got all the different things. But if they called and said, "Hey, we've got intent data to feed that entire connected tech stack, it could run through AWS, it could connect it all together, you could use whatever," then I feel like all of a sudden AWS is like, "Oh, I want to hear more about this." Because now this is a different value, it's a different pitch. And again, they're only taking that call if they believe that the brand can deliver on a
Mm.
different value prop. And so that's where that kind of like, where do we have permission to play? Does the brand come first? Does the product come first? And there's a lot of kind of like, you can kind of geek out on some of like the strategy on all of that. But that's why I love it.
Yeah. If you think about kind of, so if we say like, it's clear that the buyer journey is somewhere north of 80% outside the sales pipeline now. What are as you as a CMO, what are kind of the metrics or signals that you think that you observe to kind of understand, is the brand healthy? I'm sure that there's both like a bucket of qualitative numbers here, and then there's some quantitative numbers here. And but I'd love to hear kind of in your CMO brand cockpit, what are kind of the things that you're monitoring?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a few things. There's the obvious ones, you can run a brand study and all that kind of
Mm,
stuff. Those are expensive. They're not timely. They can be skewed based on your audience that you pull and all that good stuff. So I'm a believer in those, but on a regular cadence, to me, the leading indicators are certainly going to be the most organic. Are going to be direct web traffic is a good one, just to know, is it going up, and is it going up on a regular basis. Um, Certainly kind of anything related to social engagement rate, more so than followers even, you can buy followers, but if you
yeah.
like just engagement rate with your content. To me, my one of my favorite ones, which is a little harder not to measure, but a little bit harder to prove that it's directly correlated, is, SEO or GEO, like click-through rate.
Yeah.
Um, and I say that because when someone does a search, an unbranded search for something, and I mean, you think about when you do a search, like I'm looking
Yeah.
for information or whatever, you scroll down the first 4 or 5, you're gonna like, topics if you're on Google, for example, you're gonna scroll down and you're gonna pick on whichever brand you believe, right? You'd be like, "I've never heard of this, never heard of this. Oh, I've heard of that one. I'm gonna click on it because it feels reliable because 'cause you've heard of the brand." So sometimes your organic when you show up on organic page 1 and get the click through, that means someone was like, "Oh, I've heard of them. I trust
Yeah.
them. I'm gonna click here." To me, that's a big play, like a big kind of indirect
That's
one.
such an interesting observation, Kelly. Like, if you could think about the Google search result as like 10 outbound calls, and then
Yeah,
or there's this like, here's 6 cents. I actually know them and I trust them, so let me take that call instead
yeah,
of others.
for sure, and that's when you're gonna go like, "Oh, okay, someone knows our brand. Oh, I've heard of this one. I recognize that logo,"
Yeah.
like, or whatever it is. So, I think that's a big one. I think now, obviously, with the LLMs and moving that direction, that's gonna show up a little bit different, but I think the way that they're certainly rewarding, um, brand, in the LLMs, right? They're rewarding thought leadership, they're rewarding, they're kinda giving it used to be that you would get this, popularity score or whatever, I forget what it was called, on Google, right? Your domain authority. And
Yeah.
that's what would dictate, that's what Google would use to kind of move you up the rankings. Now I think it's a little bit different in the LLMs of how they do it, but they're certainly, but they're rewarding that. Instead of backlinks, they're now rewarding thought leadership and point of view and quality of content and things like that. So all different ways now that you build brand differently than we used to.
You also said, which is such an important yet annoying thing, that direct traffic to a website, which is it is so true that like people don't just show up out of nowhere typing in sixcents.com.
Yeah.
They only do that if word of mouth had reached them, or they saw you at a conference, or they listened to you at a podcast, and all these different things. I hadn't actually thought about checking our direct traffic for a while, but that's a very good advice, Kelly.
Yeah. Yeah, other than that, I'm trying to think there's other things, obviously, uh, events and things you can kinda get some recall surveys and that kind of thing, but I think on the normal operating cadence, those are probably the big ones.
Yeah, I think so. So now we touched metrics and brand, which is probably a good plug for you to kind of rephrase this performance branding, which just seems kind of your north star for what good marketing is. So maybe you can help kind of explaining what you mean when you use the term performance branding.
Yeah, it started when I was at Rackspace. I guess that was probably 2000 at the time, 2017, 16, 17, it's probably 10 years ago. I was running brand creative. I was running integrated marketing, which had
Mhm.
brand creative content and our campaigns. And when I was running that, what I figured out is I wanted to do a big brand campaign. So we were kind of refreshing the logo, but we were doing a big brand awareness campaign. I had asked, I think I can't remember what it was. I think I asked for like $15 million, and I said, "I wanna run this big campaign," and pitched it, and they bought it, and they love the creative, they love the concept. We brought in an agency, did the whole thing, went and pitched, the, because we wanted to double brand awareness in 12 months. That was a goal.
Oh wow.
And so, we went to the ELT and then to the board, and they approved it. They gave us flat like, within 30 minutes. It was amazing. And so we decided to run this campaign, but the one thing they asked was, I wanna see pipeline results from this." And I was like, "You will, but it's not gonna be tomorrow. It's not week. Like, it's gonna be like, I need your commitment that this 15 million can run for 12 months. And you're not gonna pull it halfway through because you're not gonna get any pipeline results if you pull it early. Like, I wanna run it for 12 months."
Mm.
And 7 months in, we doubled, awareness, which was great. So we, actually achieved our goal about 5 months early, which is great on the awareness front. But it meant that when I built the brand campaign, it couldn't just be this top of funnel. At the time, there was still print and,
Yeah.
all that kinda stuff, but there was also display ads, digital advertising,
Yeah.
branded placements in different, articles and things like that. And so but I couldn't just do that. I needed to connect it back
Mm.
to, so I needed to have, because this was before the day of everything being digital. So it was a little, I mean, it was digital, but it was still like putting a print ad was not a crazy idea back even 10 years ago. Today it might be a little bit less unless you're a pharma or something, but it seemed like something we could do. And so
Yeah.
and we did Wall Street Journal placement stuff, but we needed to connect it. So in terms of like CTAs that we put within the body, like needed to connect to an action. It couldn't just be these kind of broad strokes about the brand. Our display ads we needed to be able to see view through on this on display ads. And display ads are often controlled by performance marketers, but they really serve as top of funnel awareness.
Yeah.
And so even though they're bought by the same guy buying paid search, which is often bottom of the funnel, those display ads or paid social tend to be more awareness, impressions, yields. And so what we would watch is we needed to connect view through of the ads
Hmm.
to did that person within 30 minutes of seeing an ad go to our website, because they wouldn't necessarily click on it. And also when you're at the time I was marketing to IT people, they were too smart to let cookies follow them. And so they wouldn't click on an ad. They would look at an ad and
Yeah.
then they'd open another window and type in Rackspace.com or whatever.
Absolutely.
And so we were like, okay, we need a way to be able to connect those two. And then when they come, we need to be able to tee up a nurture campaign to them, or some way. We need to pop up an engagement. We need to put a chat bot in front of them. We need to follow up in some way. We need to figure out what company they're coming from. So we need to grab
Hmm.
like a sixth sense to tell us who's on our website, what are they doing. So connecting all of those pieces together taught me that brand doesn't have to be this thing that costs money and we can't prove, while digital marketing and campaigns and demand gen sit down here
Hmm.
running pipe. Like they have to connect.
Yeah.
So, and so I think that's where the modern, and by obviously by everything being kind of digital now, it's much easier to connect. And so the concept of performance branding might feel obvious today, but 10 years ago, and 8 and 7,
Yeah.
5 years ago, it was still two disparate functions. And so now I'm really big on kind of saying, how do we move people through? And so that drove me to multi-touch attribution, which was like, I need to be able to see, especially as I sell to large enterprises, that I need to be able to see excuse me, I need to be able to see every touch point that customer is engaging in, because it's a long journey sometimes. It's
Yeah.
not like they see an ad and they buy something, unless you're like a transactional SMB
Hmm.
PLG type thing. You're not going to do that. And so I need to be able to see, oh, they saw this ad. Oh, and then they visited our webpage. And then they looked at us on LinkedIn. And then they downloaded a piece of content. Then they registered for a webinar. And then they came to our event.
Yeah.
Then they requested a demo, and
Yeah.
all that time we're also outbounding to them.
Hmm.
So that whole connection was like, man, branding is not branding anymore. It's driving performance. It's connecting that whole journey
Yeah.
together. You can actually see all the levers and say, man, the brand thing brought them into the franchise, but this webinar, which we were thinking wasn't doing anything, was actually an early stage decision, but we couldn't see it because it wasn't the first touch or the last touch. It was somewhere in between. So I think performance branding has now evolved into me being a massive advocate for multi-touch attribution and connecting it all together.
Thank you so much for saying that, that Kelly. But
Oh, we
it's so
enough
true.
anyway.
But I had like it was. Thank you so much for telling that story. It was super inspiring. It gave me kind of two questions. Kind of how do you? Yeah. So I have never done one of these massive kind of brand awareness studies. How would you go about that today? And the second question, which we can take afterwards, is how do you double the brand awareness today? But if you start, Kelly, is it something you do today? These awareness studies, and how would you go about it today?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably do them a lot quicker now because there's all these online, like there's, Qualtrics and I don't know, SurveyMonkey or whatever. There's all these kind of, platforms out there that probably do it more efficiently. The last time I did a big one, it was expensive. I think it was like IDG maybe did it for us, or Forrester, I forget one of them. And they basically do, it's primary research, and they help you really define who your target audience is. So our goal was to double brand awareness amongst IT decision makers in a certain set of industries, or companies. And or no, I won't say companies, a certain set of industries. And so we ran this survey, and basically what it kind of it's just, and so they go and do the recruit, this third party agency, and you have to get so much sample size. I've learned that like no matter how big your company is or how big anything, like 400 is like the sample size that's relevant. And you get a sample size and you basically say things like, a bunch of qualifying questions, but then basically you test for unaided and aided awareness. So, have you, first you say, like, name all the vendors you can think of who offer this kind of a service. And then they list them out. That's your unaided awareness. Then they say, have you heard of any of these brands? And so that's your awareness. Then they'll say, how familiar are you? Familiar. 'Cause some people be like, well, I've heard of this brand, but I don't know what they do, or I know they do this, but I've never worked with them. So how familiar? And that helps you know, like, not only are they aware, but are they aware about like your space and your category and what you offer. And then there is, would you consider buying them for this thing? And then who is your preferred vendor in this space? And so you kind of do that across different cohorts of groups, and there's all the scientists behind this that kind of come up with that. And so they come and then they put you on and then the other part of it that's really helpful, I think, especially if you're going to do like a brand redesign or a new category pivot or anything, is that then they will ask you um, to kind of rank a brand against a whole bunch of different
Uh-huh.
attributes.
Okay.
And so then they'll sort of two by two it, and build you like basically a thing that kind of says, like, these are attributes that, like, this is where you fall on this brand, on this attribute continuum. And then, or this is where this attribute falls on your kind of like awareness to no awareness, with that attribute. And the other one is, how much do they care, right? Like, yeah, I know that Six Sense offers intent data, but I don't actually care about intent data. Or like I don't know what they offer, or I don't know that, I don't think Six Sense does intent data, but I really wish they did because I really want it. So you can basically find, and your goal is to find out what is that magic spot in the
Yeah.
upper right corner that says, we have permission to play in this space against these attributes, and they really, really want it and care about
Mm.
it. So that's like the place. So that when you think about a brand campaign, you think, okay, we know what our baseline is for awareness, consideration, and preference, and we know where we have permission to play. Let's
Mm.
go invest in some of this amongst our target audience and see if we can move our awareness up. So
Yeah.
that's the goal. If you do that once a year, you can start to see it. Now, it's not super actionable when it's once a year, but that's kind of your, like, $100,000 annual brand study. May not be something you want to do necessarily anymore. The
But
other way,
it's really nice to hear kind of how those things work. And obviously, when you're in a big company, it makes a lot of sense to do these things because you maybe also have a product team that produces new products and they are extremely expensive and they're bidding a lot on new features. So
yeah, understand. You
whatever.
can roll that into the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, do people get that we actually have this product that we spent 100 people for a year producing? And if people doesn't get it, maybe that the campaign also needs to highlight that feature or whatever it is.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it should influence then your messaging. It should influence your sort of your tone almost of kind of what they're expecting from you. So, and then the features that you want to elevate because people care a lot about those types of things. I think that's one. But what we did, like, on a more regular basis for like $5,000 or something on a monthly basis, was you can run, or again, I don't know if you can do them anymore. Now there's different tactics, but we used to run these Google surveys. And Google, through like your relationship, like on the Google ad side, you can work with them. They will
Yeah.
they'll run surveys for you, because they know who is on their site, and they can find you, they can find your target audience and tee up like kind of intercepts in the middle of your page, that kind of says, would you be willing to take a quick survey on whatever? And so they will run that against your target audience and just ask like a set of questions to 300 people,
Mm,
or until they get 300 responses. And
yeah.
then they can do that for you once a month, and they just run it in the background. So they'll come back and be like, okay, we just ran it, and your awareness is amongst IT decision makers is 12%.
Yeah.
And then you run it again the next month, and it's like, oh, we went up to 14. Oh, we went down to 9. Like, and you start to realize, and you can kind of like, they're all relevant, or relative to each other, because it's about who kind of is willing to take a survey, and you get all that kind of stuff. But the idea was, at least it was like a monthly pulse of like, is the brand moving in the right direction amongst the audience that we care about? So that's
Mm,
another way to do it, pretty
yeah.
cheap and dirty.
Then if you had the same target today of saying I want to double, let's say, Six Senses awareness within 12 months, and obviously you don't have to lay out your specific plans on how to do that, but how would you go about it today versus back then? What would be kind of your favorite channels or tools, etc., to achieve that?
Um, That's a good question. I'd have to revisit. We did it at my last company, and we ran it, and I think we were able to do it. Like I said, you're much cheaper now because everybody's sort of online. It's a lot easier to get in front. The old school recruit was like a manual phone
Yeah.
call, like people trying to find them. And so I think it was like maybe like 50K if I remember right.
No,
And we
sorry, that was my question was more like if you had to, do the actual doubling of the awareness.
that measurement, but the
No,
actual
no, yes. Yeah, 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 exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, I mean, the biggest tactics would certainly be, um, display advertising would be a big one.
Yeah,
I think, I think I would probably say, events are a big one. They serve a lot of brand play there. I think sponsorships are a big one. If you sponsor audiences and channels, that are, the most relevant for your audience. I think our hosted events, I think, are a big way to do it because you get to kinda own the stage, own the narrative for
yeah,
a day or 2 or 3 days. Um, I think PR is a way to do it, though I think PR today is not the way it used to be. I don't think it's about press releases, that's just for, like, kind of the searchability and kinda win wires, but, or the news wires, but I think like embedded articles, thought leadership in prime readership in prime places. I think that works. And then I think the biggest thing that's rising right now is influencer marketing,
mm,
uh, and figuring out how. Now some of that feels a little bit inauthentic because now influencers have to say like sponsored by 6 cents or whatever in the bottom.
yeah,
But getting third parties that people trust to talk about you on a regular cadence, getting podcast hosts to talk about you or
yeah,
getting, it used to be we called it what did I call it when I was at Kraft? It was called DJ something. We would get radio hosts, like we'd get Howard Stern to talk about Chips Ahoy cookies. He loved Chips Ahoy. And so we'd get him DJ Chatter, that's what it was called. And so we'd have to like pay if you've ever heard like Howard Stern or any kind of
yeah,
radio
yeah,
host
yeah,
in the middle of their segment be like, "In case you're hungry, you should check out Chips Ahoy, their new chewy flavor," or whatever, and it was, like, so awkward, but that was like, we paid for that,
yeah.
but you got somebody that people are already listening to instead of disrupting them with advertising, instead you just joined, so I think influence is gonna be a big place, um, yeah, and of course,
That
social media
that's
and
super
that
cool, Kelly. And but as you were saying these things, like I think started thinking about like also just that cost a lot of cash. So a lot of the marketing discipline is also the internal selling of this project or the internal marketing for marketing. So that must take a very strong kind of internal pitch or a business case if you want to actually do this bet that if we can truly achieve this 2x awareness,
Yeah.
you're going to pay $10 million for it or 15 as you had kind of. Yeah, how do you go about navigating your leadership team to buy into this play?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a big topic we talk about a lot, like in CMO coffee talk and stuff. We
Mm,
talk about how do you marketing
mm,
inside the company. It's one of those functions that one, it's one that marketers don't always talk about because um, because everybody in companies think they can do marketing, right? Like usually, like all the other executives are like, well, my job's hard, but that marketing stuff, like I could do marketing better than that. And so there's sort of a lot of judgment, especially like in founder-led companies and things where they feel like marketing is easy. And so I think with that, marketers tend to like, I'm just going to keep my head down. I'm just going to do my stuff so I don't get so much scrutiny from. But I think that's actually like counter to what you should be doing, right? Like I'm working really hard on making sure that like I elevate sort of the progress, the programs, the big things coming, launching, kind of an internal roadshow. It takes a lot of discipline. Like I'm trying to build agents right now that round up my calendar and all my team's weekly updates and roll them up into an executive update every week just so everybody in the company knows what's going on.
ooh, that's a
Um,
cool one, Kelly.
yeah, so I'm working on that. I do also a video for my team every Friday on kind of like the things that are top of mind for me. And then I'll share that with my leadership as well, because I think it's just helpful for them to kind of hear all the stuff that's happening. Celebrating results, celebrating wins, I think is big. I think another one that's not quite what you're asking, but I think it's a part that's part of the brand channel, is having an employee engagement platform that people are really bought into, like an Octopost or whatever people use for that kind of stuff, and getting people in your company to be advocates for you that are constantly sharing your stuff. One, because they become aware of all the stuff that you're doing when they're in that channel. They're seeing all the cool stuff, all the events coming, all the wins, all the ad campaigns, all the videos released, whatever it is. So they're seeing all that and they're promoting it. And so you're building a brand organically that way through their followers. And so you get a little bit of sort of the internal, external win there if you can get people to take the time to be your advocates.
Yeah. Often that was some really great tangible advice, Kelly. And then the thing about getting the internal agent to just look at people's calendars and maybe scan Slack and just rolling that up as a report, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I've been trying to build it, like, with, little pieces. Right now, it ends up, like, kind of like 3 little automations, but I'm trying to figure out how do I build an agent that I just click a button on Fridays, and it just pulls all that together. So it's still a little bit manual with some of that, but it's me, to or, this AI transformation in-house, is different than I've ever it's
Yeah.
first time I've ever walked into a marketing role because 'cause I've only been here about there's just under 3 months, where I thought, "I have to lead differently than I've ever led before." Like, the structure will look different when I think about how AI plays in this. The talent that I need will look different based on how AI plays in this. Like, the investments I need to make are gonna look different than my operating cadence needs to look different based on this. And it's a whole new world.
Wow. Okay. I planned a different question, Kelly,
Yeah,
but
sorry. And then I
you
took you down
just
the
said
path.
that have to do different than I have ever done before. That sounds so interesting. And I think all of us who are in B2B marketing, we experience it firsthand right now. That wave of AI is just kind of changing how we all of us do our jobs. But I'd love to hear just from your perspective of how, and I know this is not kind of finished thoughts or perfection about how to deal with it, but just go a little bit deeper and you say, I need to do this different than I've ever done before.
Yeah, I mean, like, so examples. So, I feel like, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, there was a pretty standard, like, people may structure differently. My belief on how to structure an organization is always aligned to KPIs and customer journey. So I always think, how is a customer going to experience our brand at each stage? And so what does that journey look like? And how do I consolidate KPIs? So this team knows that they're maniacally focused on pipeline. That's all they do. This one is maniacally focused on win rate. That's all they do. This one, and we can kind of map it that way. And that usually aligns to revenue marketing, product marketing, that kind of thing. So retention, whatever it is. And so that's sort of standard, but what those hiring principles look like within that are so different. I mean, 5 years ago, it was all FTEs, totally.
Hmm.
Then a few years ago, or maybe 5 to 10 years ago, it's all FTEs. Then a couple years ago, it started being like, well, no, we don't have to have all of them on staff all the time. We can use contract support for that, so we can flex resources. Maybe they're onshore, maybe they're nearshore, offshore, but maybe they're just 20 hours a week instead of full time.
Yeah.
And so we'll have some flex capacity, overflow capacity, whatever it is for creative or for content or for some of those kind of things, media buying, whatever. So we kind of had that. Now it's this sort of mix. Like, I was interviewing a VP of product marketing candidate the other day, and she said, "How big is the team?" And I walked her through the team structure, and I was like, "And you have 2 open roles, 2 more PMM roles on that team to fill." And she was thinking through it, and she was going through our platform, and she was like, "I don't need 2 more open roles." She was like, "I would bring in, 2 fractionals to come in, build the baseline to get all the, like, heart and guts and, like, the real brain work done." She's like, "On a short-term 2 or 3-month basis, and then I would use agents for the rest." She was like, "I'd have AI take all of that and turn it into everything that we need after that." She was like, "I don't need that many FTEs." She was like, "And then I can flex and I can bring fractionals back in later if I need, like, for a new, a new product line we go down or a new category change or a big initiative." She was like, "But I don't need that full time." And I was like, "Man, so now the hiring principle is different." One of my writers resigned. He went to be a head writer somewhere else. And the immediate, like, gut is, for his manager was like, "I need to open a backfill for the writer." And I was like, "Yes, in theory, we still need that writing done, but is there maybe contract support while we build a content production agent, and then maybe you can hire somebody who's more of a content strategist So I'm not trying to cut costs out of it. I'm trying to reallocate people to do more strategic work, and then AI is sort of the automated stuff, right? Like, so is
Mm.
there a balance? Like let's like every backfill, I'm like, could we do that different? Could we do that smarter? Could an agent run that and we use the headcount for this? And so I said, give me 90 days, like build an agent with outside help. I mean, do like have a contractor filling your writing needs while you build its agent. And then in 90 days, if you still need that headcount, let's talk. But let's figure out, you might have a different pain point you're trying to solve by then. So each time someone leaves, I'm like, I think I want to look different. I think I want to do it different next time. And I've never been in a situation like that. Like, it was always like, oh yeah, AI is cool. I'm going to download ChatGPT. Now
Yeah,
it's like, no, let's actually operate the business different. And it's been game changing. So
that's very interesting. Yeah, I just think like that makes so much sense when somebody leaves. That is like the perfect time to do like reorgs or recalibrations of how projects run, because one, you don't have to upset anybody about their role being laid off, and it's
yeah.
like perfect opportunity to just to think about like with Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, everything that is available there now, and has so much work that can be done if you just have people help build the GPTs, and then other people can work them.
Yeah, yeah, and figuring out kind of what, like, I'm constantly looking at the budget I need, because I'm like, I'm not trying to cut headcount, but a different resource, and I need to invest differently. I need to make sure I have Claude Pro licenses or whatever if I'm gonna do that. So I need some investment over here in Claude. I need some a different profile over here, but I don't know exactly what that is yet. And then maybe I need to kind of like imagine the art of the possible. I even talked to a consultant yesterday who does nothing but kind of AI overhauls for marketing teams. And I was like, yes, come spend a half day with my team and like let's dream a little on what we could do, because I think it's not that complicated to use. It's figuring out how to use it and when to use it and what tools to use. And am I connecting like, Zapier and Notion and Claude and my calendar and, all together, and like how is it Asana, whatever it is, and coming up with some like some automation on the back end. So anyway, it's just fascinating. It's a whole new world.
Absolutely. Okay, Kelly. So I wanted to ask you, because you've been so successful in your career, about a new marketing leader. What's the advice that you wanna give them? And I'm sure number one is you gotta get on this AI wave to understand what's coming. So if we take that aside, is there any other advice that's worth sharing? You think?
I think the biggest thing um, is speed and quick wins to get started. I mean, the average life of a CMO is like 18 months or whatever it is right now, 18 to 20 months.
Very, yeah,
And so, like, the clock is sort of ticking on day 1, right? And the honeymoon period is only so long before, that wears off. And so during that honeymoon period, like, move fast. And that means, like, and it doesn't have to be perfect, right? You can set an expectation with your team that this may be 80% perfect. Like, be nimble, be flexible. Like, the only thing constant around here is gonna be change. Like, we're
yeah.
gonna have rationale. Always build the strategy for why the change. Don't change for change sake. But when you get into an organization, my belief is strategy, structure, people, right? Get in there, understand the business, understand what you're trying to accomplish, understand what you need, how you need to organize, understand people's strengths and weaknesses and that kind of thing, and talents and interests and all that. But really, people's names aside, figure out what the strategy is for the business. What are we trying to accomplish? And that doesn't need to be like a 6 month. We're talking like a few days, like figure out what the big problems are we're trying to solve, the big metrics we're trying to solve, align with your leader on what needs to solve. Then put the structure in place that allows for that, and build out that org model. And then the very last step would be figure out the names and boxes of how that all works. That to me is like a month-long exercise. Like in a month, you should be in a new structure pretty well defined. Obviously, that might be different if you have 5,000 marketers versus I have, 50 or whatever.
Yeah.
But kind of spend that time and you'll get close enough. Second, I would say is like get your pipeline flowing. Like that's the first thing that needs to kind of happen. So make sure you have a great revenue marketing leader. Like that should be the like one person who owns pipeline.
Yeah.
Their job should be to kind of build a whole functioning team. So get that moving. That's what will buy you time.
I was thinking exactly that.
If you're producing
Somebody,
pipeline, it will
yeah.
leave you alone to figure out the rest of the stuff. Get that going, and then look at your leadership team and figure out. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with not having the right leadership team or having the right leadership team. Like it's part of being a leader these days. Like evaluate the, because if they're not the right talent, they're unhappy. You want something different than what they're delivering. So be bold on it. Don't get so settled into like the talent that you have if they're not the right fit. And you can do that with love and grace too, I think, in the way we transition. So yeah, those are kind of the big things. Like I said, if um
I'm sure there's
pipeline
many, many more.
changes. Oh, I mean, I got lots. I'm doing them all the time. So I'm
And a
a
lot of it depends and so forth. But Kelly, so two things. Which type of companies should take a look at Six Sense? And if they want to continue to following all your great advice, where do you want to send people afterwards?
sure. So the best companies for Six Sense are going to be B2B. Um, Mostly companies that have kind of a long sales cycle, maybe complexity in their sales cycle, maybe multiple product lines where they're trying to sell to. They have a very clear target audience that they want to get in front of. Like they want to just sell to banks, and that's what and they have a very clear um, target audience. That's to me, it's a great way to drive sales and marketing alignment. It's a great way to make sure you're putting all your dollars into the right accounts. You'll increase your conversion rates, you'll increase your quality, and you'll be able to have reduce your CAC over time because you'll be getting in front of the right audience faster for the people who want to be in the market for you. So that's Six Sense. We just help increase pipeline, help drive higher conversion so that you sell more stuff. And then to follow me, I would say LinkedIn is the best place for sure. So come find me out there. I try to post often, but I just love, yeah, LinkedIn.
Wonderful, Kelly. Thank you so much for spending the time with me and the people who are listening here. I really learned a lot, and I need to go back and try to do an agent like you to kind of get the weekly summary done by an agent rather than every person typing stuff in.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so thank you so much, and people who have been listening, thank you so much for spending the time with us. And if you agree with what Kelly said or strongly disagree, go in and type in a comment or a question to Kelly, and I'm sure she will answer.
absolutely.
Thank you. Have a nice day, everyone.
We hope you like listening to us. Subscribe to our podcast and the ones that we have been guests on.
And if you have any feedback for us, just do let us know. And should there be a guest that you think we should be talking to, then pitch us.
We're looking forward to seeing you.